I want to thank everyone for joining us today. By now, you all are very familiar with the challenges that have arisen in our efforts to get children served by George Wythe High School into a new George Wythe High School as soon as possible. This has been my goal for nearly the last 2 years. And had we stayed the course in the productive city RPS partnership that resulted in the construction of 3 new schools in 2020, we wouldn't be here today. We would be on site at Crutchfield Street to see the new foundation of a new school coming out of the ground. Unfortunately, our repeated offers to compromise have been rejected by a slim majority of the school board, which also went against the advice of its own superintendent and RPS administration in the process. And now, a majority of City Council has rightfully taken notice and expressed reluctance to release millions in hard-earned taxpayer dollars to a divided and dysfunctional body that seems determined to build a brand new school according to the specifications that would likely have it over capacity on the first day it opens. I too share their concerns. And I can't and I won't support the approach that ignores population trends and demographics. I won't support building a new school with temporary modular classrooms attached. But I also know that we all have an obligation to put our children first. This is not the job of any single elected official or elected body. We are one Richmond, and it is a job of all of us. And it is in that spirit that I, along with members of the City Council, will present one last offer at compromise that will allow us to move forward for our kids and their families sooner rather than later. Our community members have asked for us to work together to build approximately the appropriately sized school for our kids. And we've listened. That is why tonight, at our City Council meeting, I will introduce an ordinance that calls for Council to release the $7.3 million in funding for design of a new George Wythe High School, one that will provide enough space to accommodate all of its students. So what does that look like? Well, put simply, it looks like the design of a school that will have the capacity to accommodate 1,800 students on the day it opens, not 1,600 students. And it calls for the design of a school that would have the ability to expand and grow in the future if the population trends we predict hold true. So simply put, this design would not be for a 1,600 student school, and it would not be for a 2,000 student school. It will be for a 1,800 student school that can be expanded. In transferring these funds, in accordance with this ordinance, it will now be up to the school board to deliver for our kids. Our children have waited long enough. Their parents have waited long enough. It's time to put down our swords, and it's time to elevate our kids above the fight. I know deep down we all want the best for our kids, but the time for disagreement is over. The time for politics is over. Each day of further delay is a disservice for our kids. This ordinance will be introduced tonight, and we expect a public hearing and vote to be held on April 25th. With the approval of this ordinance, the school board would then have the chance to put all the past disagreement and dysfunction aside and to do the right thing by the children of George Wythe and also to uphold the oath of office they took. We stand ready to work with members. We hope they will commit to working together amongst themselves and to engaging with the Wythe community. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a chance for us to move forward for the sake of our kids, and I hope the school board takes action. And with that, I'll ask that our council president, Dr. Cynthia Newbill, provide a couple of remarks. Dr. Newbill.
Thank you, Mayor. Today, I stand with my council colleagues and the mayor, unequivocally committed to ensuring that all, not some, but all of our children have the opportunity to be educated in state-of-the-art facilities sooner than later. They cannot and they should not have to wait any longer than necessary for construction. We are wanting the highest quality education for all of our children. We're wanting state-of-the-art facilities. We are readying our children, not some, but all, to be successful in a highly global, highly technological society, and so they can no longer be placed in small learning spaces. They need to have spaces that are sufficient to meet the needs of the academic programming, sufficient to meet the needs of growth and further development as absolutely indicated. I won't go through all of the numbers again, but the mayor's numbers and what we have seen in terms of Cropper report, other projections, superintendents, proposal in terms of school administrations. When I say RPS administration's proposal and indication of the size of the facility that should come online at George Wythe as soon as possible. And so today, as the mayor has indicated, a paper will be submitted and introduced at council. It does represent a compromise. It is not a dictate, but an invitation to compromise to make sure that our children have the best opportunities possible in a right-sized facility. And that's what we're looking for. A right-sized facility from day one that allows for further growth and development. All of the numbers indicate the need for that. And so I am looking forward to working with our school board colleagues. You are our partners in this. We see you as that. And I'm looking forward to a collaborative partnership, mayor, city council, school board, and community, parents, to make sure that Wythe and every other school that we look to construct meets the needs of our children today and as we project based on solid data analysis. And so with that, I simply want to thank the mayor for the paper that will come forward, thank my colleagues for support of the compromise, and more so than the compromise, the right sizing of our facility to meet the needs based on our understanding of the data that's been presented. Not that I think is a good idea, but the data that's been presented based on the projections and numbers in our community. Look forward to getting these funds transferred to schools so we can get underway with the construction of a new George Wythe so that our children can have access to state-of-the-art facilities, much needed, much deserved, and we're looking forward to working towards that end. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Dr. Newbill. I'm going to have Councilman Jones provide a few remarks. Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's never been about pride or politics. This has always been about the families on the South Side that deserve our best. And that's been our focus. As chair of the Finance Committee, I've simply done my job, my due diligence in ensuring the fiscal responsibility of the dollars that we have been charged to manage. I want to thank my colleagues on council for standing with me in that and taking unfair jabs, receiving unfair barbs from organizations that have no stake in Southside communities. And so I want to celebrate them, even while I was away, and even as one runs down. We've waited. We've waited. And to do the right thing, it's always best to wait, to pause. And this has not been a delay. This has not been a political tactic. This has been good governance, making sound decisions. This is our one opportunity to make a meaningful step forward toward intentional investment in the Wythe community. We deserve it. And I say we simply because one thing, majority of the students that attend Wythe, and actually we can talk about those that don't, only 133 do not live in the 8th and 9th district. The rest do. So 1,800 is, in my opinion, a smart investment that supports the growth that we know is coming. We know it's coming. And so this is long overdue. Wythe deserves the best. And even if we had to wait until this point, I believe it's a wait worth fighting for. And so my challenge and my hope and prayer is that all of school board, not just a 5-4 vote either way, but the majority of the school board can gather and say, this is the best thing. Build 1,800, leave room for expansion, and when it comes, because it shall, then move finances again to do the right thing so our children aren't stacked on top of each other. I could talk about redistricting and the things that have not happened to this point, but I'll save that for another conversation. Our families and communities deserve the best, and I believe the mayor and council and the school board can deliver on that. And here's our opportunity to win together.
Hear, hear.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other council? Mr. Addison?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For me, this is not about anything with, I hate to say this, politics, because to me it's about the children, as has been stated before. But for me, it's also the generational investment that a school provides for a community, to not only see who they are today, but to see where they're going to be in the future. We see Southside becoming the anchor of our growth as a city, from the vision set forth in the master plan to the decisions that this body, along with many other commissions and boards have been doing across the region, are seeing growth in our city. And for me, this is an investment while looking at the projections of today. We see the changes in Southside from transportation to transit-oriented development to new opportunities for jobs and housing that's going to grow exponentially over the next 10, 20, 30 years. This is not a school to be built for the next 5 years. This is one to be built for the next 30, 50 years. This is an investment of our taxpayer dollars for the next 20 to 30 years that needs to be done in a way that looks towards the future, a future that many children in our schools today don't know what it looks like. And for me, this investment is about that, making sure we show Southside the cutting-edge investment in a brand-new school that will grow with them. And for me, that's why I've supported this negotiation to this point and look forward to seeing the action tonight with the introduction and over the next couple days. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, that's it for our remarks. We'll now open up to questions.
Questions on George Wythe and the George Wythe proposal? Henry?
Two questions, one on today and George Wythe. Just messaging with some school board members about the news with the compromise. Some of them are already saying 1,600 is their hard number no matter what. I mean, how do you try to move this forward even after this compromise here today to make sure that they're coming to the table and y'all are talking about, where to land on
The first question is, Henry stated that he has already been messaging with members of the school board who've already stated that they will not move off of their number of 1,600 students for the new George Wythe. Essentially sticking with the status quo, that status quo being gridlock. Here's the thing, this is just a glimpse of what could happen if folks put down petty politics, put aside petty politics, put aside pride, come to the table, and put the kids first. Because the real sight that we should be seeing is all 9 members of City Council, all 9 members of School Board, and myself standing saying to the Wythe community that we're going to do what's necessary to get you in a new school as quickly as possible and make sure it's appropriately sized so that on day one, they're not in modular classrooms. So when I hear 1,600, that there are members already stating that they will not move from 1,600, it's disappointing. It's not what the community at large, not just the Wythe community, Richmonders don't want to hear we're dug in. They want to hear, you know what, I'm willing to give a little, to get a little. And who gains from this? Our children gain the most. And so it's disappointing to hear that. I will remain optimistic. I will remain optimistic that there will be at least one member of the school board, of that slim majority, that will actually recognize that every delay injures our children. Every delay. And as a segue into this weekend's tragedy, the child that we lost this weekend was a student at George Wythe. And Henry, you know, we've had many times, every week I've come up here and I think poured my soul out about what I think about gun violence and the number of lives, young lives, that we lose to senseless gun violence. I recognize, the members with me here recognize that one of the ways that we can combat gun violence in our community is to combat poverty, to give folks better homes, more affordable housing, but also the strongest education possible. And here's the thing, I'll be the first to say it, because there have been people before me, you look at the names on this wall behind me. We have not done enough to provide a stronger education for our children and better communities for them to live in. And guess what? As I've stated before, it will not happen overnight. And it surely will not happen when people say, I'm dug in, I'm digging in even deeper, prevent progress from occurring. And so just like school construction, just like strengthening our curriculum, just like building more affordable housing, we need to be all hands on deck for gun violence as well. And here's the thing, we're committed. Not only are we putting the funding behind our prevention framework, we're also putting more dollars behind solutions in the policing world as well. And so we're doing everything we can to throw the kitchen sink, but that does not stop the pain that is felt by families week in and week out. There'll be a child missing at the Thanksgiving table this November. There'll be less gifts under the tree this November because a child is missing. When I say, shouldn't we do everything we can to give our kids the most? This is part of that. This is part of it. It's not an overnight panacea, but we should be doing everything we can to give our kids the best and the most. That's just what I think. Oh, Dr. Newber wanted to add.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To your question, I think today is the day that we all begin to model the behavior that we are instructing our youth as best path forward, to come together relative to compromise. This is not some sort of perfunctory activity. This, our children's lives, their well-being now and into the future. And so I'm saying, well, let's get to the table. Let's model that behavior that we talk about in terms of compromise and get this school built for our children as soon as possible.
Brendan. Mayor Stoney, what are your plans if school board rejects the 1,800 population size?
Well, you know, the question is, what are my plans if school board rejects the 1,800 population size capacity for a new school? Well, first, before we go to, I don't want us to up here playing pundit all day long. We're not psychics. We don't know what's going to happen. But all we can do is try, right? And this paper that will be introduced tonight is a demonstration of us trying, right? We expect our kids to put effort into their work, right? My dad always told me, he was like, okay, you may not get all A's, but I want you to show some effort in everything you do. The council folks who were with me this morning, and over the majority of them that will sign on to this paper that will be introduced this evening, are putting in the effort to get this done. And all we request is, before you start messaging reporters and saying that you're dug in on 1,600, that you put in the same effort that these individuals right here are putting in, that you put in the same effort that our children are putting in. That's all I'm asking for. All I ask is for, if you're out there right now, members of the school board, to put in the effort to meet the city council and the administration halfway. That's all we're asking for, to meet us halfway.
Yes, Mayor, what is your message to these George Wythe families who feel like they've been put on the back burner for so long?
The question is, what is the message to the families who feel like they've been put in the back burner for so long? My message is, this should not have happened. This should not have happened. In 2020, I stood with members of City Council, I think members of the school board, in front of George Wythe High School, and said that we were going to get this school built and opened in the fall of 2024. And as I stated in my remarks, if we weren't interrupted in the work, there would be beams coming out of the ground right now on site off of Crutchfield Street in South Richmond, on track to open in the fall of 2024. My message to to those in the Wythe community who live in South Side and 8th and 9th District and parts of the 5th District, over across the river as well, is that you have waited long enough. And I've seen you, I see you. You've demanded more from your school board. And what I've seen as well is that they have not listened to you. The members here on City Council, your mayor, we're listening to you. We've seen and heard what you want out of RPS. You want the same quality school with quality facilities, state-of-the-art facilities, strong curriculum, as folks have in the west end of the city. And you deserve that. And that's why we're up here making the effort to meet the school board halfway. All we're asking for is the school board to meet us halfway.
Brendan, I'm sorry, you had another question. Yeah, again, if school board rejects the 1,800, what would happen next?
Well, Brendan, the question is, if they reject the 1,800, what would happen next? I'm going to say, Brendan, I'm not up here to think pessimistically about what's going to happen. My belief is that one member of the school board is going to say yes and say, we need to do this for our kids, which will end up with us transferring the funds to the account so we can start the design process and hopefully the construction of the school as quickly as possible. Our Chief Administrative Officer, our Chief Administrative Officer, Lincoln Saunders, is going to explain the technical parts of what we're doing this evening. But also, I want you to know this. This paper does is it defines the scope of what they can use the dollars on. So we got $7.3 million going to the school board account if they can meet the scope. The scope is building a school with a capacity of 1,800 students. That's what, now if they say no, if they say no, that means they're saying no to building a school. The City Council administration is in agreement. We need a school. We needed it yesterday. If they say no, they're saying no to building a school at all. Mr. Saunders, you want to add anything?
Just clarify that, thank you, Mayor. Just that the way the budget amendment is constructed, the money will go into the CEI, the capital improvement plan line item for George Wythe, with the defined scope that should, if school board, hopefully when school board chooses to follow that scope, the funds would be available to them. If not, the funds remain in the city's capital account. And so it is simply a question of whether they're prepared to meet us there.
Yeah, I have a few follow-up questions. According to my colleague Tyler Lane, President Newville, I believe in the last session, or at least the last compromise meeting between the school board and the city council, you said like the end-all would not be capacity issues. I'm pretty confident you said that the funds would not be withheld solely on the fact for capacity issues, that this was somewhat of a compromise.
I indicated that the paper would be coming to council and that council would be decisioning on it. There was nothing that had been discussed by council that predicated on the size of the school, period.
And then I see 4 council folks up here now. Is this a whole agreement between all city council members? Or just this?
Well, you know, the question is, we see 4 members of council up here now. This is a full agreement amongst all city council members. Remember, for a paper like this is a budget amendment, it will take 6 votes of city council to transfer the dollars to RPS to make this amendment happen. We have the necessary 6 to make that happen.
And you all call this a compromise. Have you heard from folks on the school board that agree with you all so far?
The question was, you call this a compromise. Have you heard from members of the school board who agree with you? We have had indication from members of the school board who were not necessarily in favor of 1,800. Some still want 2,000. But we were able to sit down with them, and we think we all came to an agreement that 1,800 is the middle ground, because we want to make this thing work. And so I appreciate those members of the school board who were in the 2,000 camp, who are willing to actually do what's necessary to build something. And that something is a school that's the right size for our children, it's long overdue.
Henry, you good? Autumn, you good? Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.